Welcome to A Mason's Work, the podcast where we review Masonic symbols and illustrate how they can be used to solve problems in everyday life. With your host, Brian Mattox, a proud member of the Craftsman Online Media Network.
Yesterday, I said something at the end of the episode that I want to come back to. When we lose the signal, that honest signal about what we feel and what happened, and we kind of subvert that or turn it into the approval of friends over this sort of should of gratitude, we tend to lose that forever. That's not hyperbole. It's just how the mechanism works at scale and over time. One kind of transmutation doesn't cost you much. The transmutation. 1,000 of them run kind of automatically over years, and the signal stops arriving. Not because there's nothing there, but because you trained yourself not to feel it. And that suppression becomes the default. That kind of stuck becomes the entire walls of the cell you've created for yourself. So before we talk about what to do, we need to talk about where all this comes from. Not that we're going to just kind of Freudian our way through this problem, but rather, if we don't know why we do the things we do, we certainly can't, in many ways, spot them when they come up and then come up with a better solution as we go. So this is a kind of double application of the middle of the process, the awareness, reflection, analysis, action process that I mentioned in my book. And so we're going to go back and forth between that reflection and analysis cycle here as we talk about how, we turned this strong response into a subverted response of gratitude and then an approval-seeking behavior through, talking to your buddy over a pint. And so when we start to look at this, it's best to look at the objective. Right? The things we tend to believe about the world are designed to do something for us. They're a genesis that is creative in its application. We are thinking up solutions to preserve and conserve and manage risk. As people grow in age, they change the way they interact with the world. Here's a kind of place to start looking for this stuff. When you find that you have a behavior that justifies you being comfortable and sitting still, that was the design intent of the behavior. So when you were growing, when you took a risk one time, you had this response where it's like, hey, rather than go through all of the pain and suffering of real risk and real vulnerability or whatever, I just kind of swapped out for the easier solution. This is biologically normal, right? So I don't mean to suggest that you're in any way broken because this is the way your brain works. This is the way a lot of brains work. And so moving to a place, finding an emotional response in a given situation that is both socially acceptable and justifies inaction, or even better, justifies inaction and at the same time gets you attention. This is like choice behavior for the young brain. The young brain latches onto this behavior and then solidifies it into a default response. So you go from being able to meaningfully take in the world the way it is, and essentially using these stimuluses when you're confronted with them to then find a way to justify staying stuck. And oftentimes we do it in a way that seems super productive. Of course I should be grateful. Of course wanting more than what I have is greedy. Of course men like me don't pursue that kind of thing. But these kinds of rationalizations are all designed to act, again, as this almost preservative layer to keep the flower from seeing the real world, to keep it pressed and in a safe space so that you don't have to go out and do the things. As we work to this, as we talk through this over the tomorrow's episode as well, we're going to figure out kind of what to do about it. And how do we take those really, really strong responses that we get and not turn them into all of the normal kind of negative things that we would have expression wise, all of the kind of hard responses. We're going to learn to subvert that and turn it into something useful over the next 2 episodes.
The views represented in this podcast are those of the speaker alone and are not representative of any grand or subordinate lodge.
Hi, Brian here. I wanted to thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you have any suggestions or guidance for further episodes you'd like to see or hear, whatever the case may be, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at amasonswork.com, and we will try and incorporate your suggestions into a future recording. Thanks.
Freemasonry teaches us that the true work is within, a lifelong journey of reflection, discipline, and discovery. At A Mason's Work, we help Masons bring out their best selves through meaningful self-inquiry and symbolic practice. From personal reflection to lodge engagement, we offer tools that turn symbols into action. Visit us at amasonswork.com. The work is within. The time is now.